Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Stasia.
I'm producer James.
And we're here to do minutes 20 through 30 for X-Men Origins, Wolverine. I'm going to put the colon in every time.
As you should. Because you would think it'd be an X-Men colon, but it's not.
No, X-Men Origins, Wolverine.
That's right.
What happens in these episodes, this 10 minutes, James?
In these 10 minutes, Bolt is working at the carnival until Sabretooth visits him. Then R.I.P. Bolt.
Rip.
Stryker and Agent Zero pay a visit to Wolverine at work. And
Also rip.
No one dies.
Well, no one dies,
No one
but
dies.
yes.
But his spot gets blown up.
Yeah.
Silver Fox and Wolverine then go home for a bit of coziness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And also, like, I don't know, Wolverine claws through sheets.
Yeah. Less cozy.
Yeah, she gets a little scratched up. That is like, we'll talk about Wolverine and his lovers and how unfortunate they all tend to be. But
when the lover in this one becomes unfortunate.
Yes,
Yeah. We'll get
there. But until then, I want to point out that this is, in fact, foreshadowed in this movie. Because once again, I'm here to say, these 10 minutes, still good.
I'm still digging it.
I'm here to report 30 minutes into this movie. It's still good. I don't know. I've been accused of being X-Men pilled by several friends and family that I can't see.
You don't like Wolverine, though.
That's what I keep telling them.
That's the thing. This movie is not for you.
No.
And you're still digging it.
I'm still having a good time. I think this is really going to get me in trouble. This is going to get me like, you're a fake gamer girl energy from the internet. So I'm going to say it anyway. I had more problems with Deadpool and Wolverine 30 minutes in than I do with this movie.
I can believe that. This movie takes itself a little more seriously in the first 30 minutes. We were talking about the Wolverine origin storyline for Dog and then Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
And this is more of the origin end of things. It's more of a drama that happens to have mutants.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it's not the crazy superhero story. Deadpool and Wolverine is crazy superhero from the get-go. You also don't like Deadpool.
I do not.
And that's fine. We've had the argument of, like, does Deadpool belong in the X-Men universe or not? And we'll continue to have it off mic because we don't have that kind of time on the mic. We sure
don't. But I do think, yeah, like what we're saying, this movie is, like, serious in a way that, but here's the thing, I do like the crazy. You guys have heard me on this podcast talk about the major issues I had with the Sony versus, like, they didn't lean in.
Right.
The first 30 minutes of this movie doesn't lean in at all, but I still think it's good.
But it stays true to the comics in a lot of ways.
Yes. I mean, there are some things here, there nitpicks, but for the most part, if you've listened to these first 3 episodes, this is just one for one. They just pulled it out of the comic book, which, you know what? I appreciate. I don't know. I felt like I liked it. But I will admit, as we go into actually what we're going to talk about today, Bolt is an enigma to me. I did not recognize this character. I did not know who this was. Is he Wolverine specific? Tell me more, James.
So it's funny. I think I was similar when I first watched the movie. I wasn't as knee deep in the comics. So I just assumed I was missing a thing because I also didn't know who Agent Zero was either.
Yeah.
He's not Wolverine specific.
Okay.
I would say. So his first appearance is in X-Men Unlimited number 8.
Okay.
His name is Chris Bradley, which is what it is in this too. They just refer to him as Bradley more often than Chris, which is weird because that's also a first name.
It's kind of weird, but it's also like, it's so military. Yeah. Like, it makes sense. Yeah. They call him Wade. They call him Wade.
But they call him Wed. That's the weird. I was about to say there was a name in there where I was like, well, that wasn't last name. But he wouldn't go by his last name.
Right.
Bolt's introduction is basically just the one issue, and it is I think supposed to be a stereotypical what the Xavier Institute does issue. So you get introduced to him, normal teen with his buddy being like, oh man, that girl at school, I'm in love with her name is Donna.
Oh,
right. And he wants to, he's like, I'm going to ask her out tonight or at school the next day or whatever. Mm-hmm. But of course, gene mutant activation.
Got it.
He's at home, blows all the fuses in his house because he is electrically powered just like he is in the movie.
Okay.
A little more because it's a comic book. You see the lightning and stuff come out. And in the movie, they make it a little more subtle, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
Which works for the movie, I would say.
Yeah.
So he has to stay home from school, that whole thing. He goes the next day, and wouldn't you know, there is a couple of weird-looking adults that follow him to school.
Oh, no.
Jean Grey and Gambit are keeping an eye on him.
Oh, interesting.
And so happens at school, too. He has another, flash, and they take him to the Xavier Institute. There is a small thing where he goes to his best friend and admits to him that he thinks he's a mutant, and his friend now is cut him off.
Well, okay. Wow.
Rough stuff. They go to his parents. They explain the whole situation. We'll take him to the school. We'll train him how to use his powers. And it seems like a temporary thing. He's not going to become an X-Man. Yeah. He is just going to the school to learn how to control this ability.
It's very interesting because, you've heard us talk about this on the podcast before, but, what Xavier School is so flexible.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes it is just what it is being accused of by S.H.I.E.L.D. and the FBI, I think, is basically effectively training a militant uprising of mutants, in a lot of ways. Everyone is there to be an X-Men. It's a terrorist cell, I guess. Yeah. Freedom fighters to others, etc. But I would but there are also other times where it's no, this is operating as a school to just educate young mutants. Yeah. And then some of them happen to become terrorists. It's not.
This is in 1995.
Okay. So this is school era.
So this is school era.
That makes sense.
So he goes, and then it is page upon page upon page of him interacting with the different X-Men, learning how to use his powers. And he essentially graduates knowing how to use his power. And it's only been weeks. So he's not there to be an actual student. He is there only to learn how to control his powers.
I'm going to have to put a pin in that and do some research on that later. I mean, I guess the other short run is Quentin Quire. He's a student for and graduates in the run of Wolverine. So I guess that's possible.
I when I was reading it, it felt like they were trying to show this happens
all the time.
They take in mutants that need help.
That is really
and they help them out, and then they release them back in the wild.
I know this is not about Bolt specifically, but that is really interesting he was the specific character that they're he's one of the normal mutants that just go through it.
He didn't even have a code name. He was just Christopher Bradley. He was just
so he didn't go by Bolt.
No, he didn't have a costume. He was just hanging out with the X-Men, and they seemed to like him, personally, person to person.
That's really weird.
Yeah, all in one issue.
Okay.
So the only other thing that happens before he gets released, Beast had taken a blood sample and was we're just going to run some tests, pretty standard stuff. As he's about to leave, they're we have some bad news. You have the legacy virus.
Oh, yes. You said 95, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You did.
I did.
You did.
We've talked about the legacy virus before. I don't even remember what episode, but we have talked about it. It is basically the analog for HIV.
Yeah.
And only for mutants.
Right.
So they're we'll keep in contact. We don't have a cure for this, but you can't give it to other humans, regular Homo sapiens. Sorry, that's it.
And they just let him go.
And they let him go. Well, because they're going to stay in contact, is what they say. Sure. So he gets back home. He ends up asking out Donna. Donna knows he's a mutant because now the story has spread from his friend. And then he's but I also have the legacy virus. She's that's fine. Doesn't bother her.
Okay.
She ends up being in his story every time he shows up.
Really?
They stayed together.
That's actually really cute. I've never seen that, I don't think. So,
he shows up again in X-Men Unlimited number 15, but the X-Men, he can't get in touch with the X-Men because Onslaught's going on at this time.
Okay.
The Friends of Humanity are basically messing with him. They've torched his house.
Yeah.
They've threatened Donna. So he gets in contact with Maverick because he was there's a whole thing where he's in he's trying to find a back alley doctor to help him with his legacy virus. So is Maverick.
Got it.
So they get together. Maverick moves his family down to Florida, gives him a fake identity.
So the Friends of Humanity can't abuse them anymore. Yeah.
So down there, it's a similar thing. He finds a doctor that helps him out, and then he helps the doctor out with his powers. and is like, hey, I kind of like superheroing. So he ends up like moving back to New York because Donna's starting to get harassed again by Friends of Humanity, and he helps her out and then ends up joining the New Warriors. Like the year 2000.
Okay.
It's like the second run or something like that.
So like I definitely didn't read this stuff, which I guess that tracks. But 95 maybe, but maybe he wasn't big enough. But by 2000,
well, he's one issue. He's like two issues.
One issue. Yeah,
that's the thing. A lot of the stuff isn't even on Marvel Unlimited.
You had mentioned that, which is so listeners will notice that I didn't read these because James was like, I'm actually pulling some stuff from the archives here. So we kind of split this episode.
So his run is he gets the name Bolt. He gets the costume, all New Warriors stuff.
Okay.
That's where the majority of his run is. So he's not a Wolverine person. He's a New Warriors guy.
Huh.
Weirdly
I've never read that either, so that makes sense.
Well, you wouldn't because he's the only mutant on the team.
Who is on the New Warrior? Is it like...
Oh boy, this team, it's like somebody named Aegis, Aegis, Namorita.
Oh, that's Namor's...
It's like his cousin? I believe
yes,
so. Yeah.
Yes.
Nova, Speedball, and Turbo.
I'm surprised I knew one of those people.
If you read Civil War, you would know Speedball.
Okay, yes, I have read.
And the New Warriors is what kicked off Civil War.
Got it.
Like the explosion at the beginning is them as a reality show.
God, I actually know what you're talking about now.
That's New Warriors.
Okay.
I think Namorita may have been on the team at that point too.
Okay.
And then like other people because it wasn't this team. But Bolt's there from the get-go. Like they decided they wanted to kick the team back up and he happened to help them out with what they were doing. So fast forward, he leaves the New Warriors and then he sort of disappears. Like he just isn't in comics for a while. Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump to the Weapon X 2003 run, which is a weird and wild time because it's like Weapon X is back up and running, but like as almost like Team X is what they seem to be doing. And Maverick is on the team. But Maverick died.
Right.
Basically, you find out later, Bolt had taken the mantle of Maverick.
Okay.
So he was Maverick. Maverick gets killed in the run. Like the run isn't quite important, but he gets killed in this run by Agent Zero.
Oh.
Which you find out later is Maverick. Like the original Maverick. I will go in this later, I think, when we do an Agent Zero highlight.
Okay.
But just so you know, Agent Zero kills Maverick knowing that Maverick isn't Maverick.
Right, because
Agent Zero is actually Maverick.
Maverick.
And if I didn't say Maverick enough, watch out.
Does he know that it's Bolt?
After he kills him.
Is he upset about it?
Yes.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. So...
Because it was an homage, but he thought it was a theft.
He was doing it. Yep. Yeah. That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, that's the X-Men drama that follows mutants everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're New Warriors.
And that is like he's one of the fun Necrotia, victims.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's a background thing where you're like, who is that guy?
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if it's always a question now because now you're post Krakoa. You're like, who made it out?
Exactly.
Who knows?
I think there's no way to be specific anyway, but it is nice that if you wanted to bring Bolt back, you could.
Any mutant really is on the table again.
Absolutely. Unless they were specifically like any question mark is on the table for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You could just bring it in. That is super interesting.
So not quite this Bolt. Like he was trained by Maverick at one point, so he could be Maverick. Like that wasn't weird in the comics.
Okay.
But he was never military to begin with.
Okay, so he was never on this team, really.
No, he would have never been on Team X.
In my head, I just assumed that he also was, that you just left it out. But of course, you didn't actually say that.
Specifically, it was him and Deadpool were the two big, and Blob.
Yeah.
Those are the three that were like not on Team X. But I mean, he's a red shirt in this movie. he's meant specifically to die.
You do also kind of feel bad for him too, because
for sure.
like, well, one, it's like the actor that what's his name? He plays one of the hobbits in
It's Dominic Monaghan.
Yes. Like, so he's like you're like, oh, he's just such a nice, sweet guy. Yeah. Like, he plays that character really well, and that's what he's doing, and then he just like dies to Sabretooth, which just, you know.
Once again, when watching these 10 minutes, this is the Sabretooth we deserved.
It's really good.
When he shows up at the door, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, he's here to kill you, basically.
And when he said even, I thought it'd be Wade.
Right.
You're like, oh no, this isn't going to turn out well. And the fact that they don't show it, it's just like a scream and the lights go out, like, oh, terrifying. This is oh man, this Sabretooth is not to be messed with. If the other Sabretooth showed up, you'd be like, oh, the henchman showed up.
Right. Yeah. This is not like, this definitely feels like that Sabretooth that is inevitable and also like kind of stable, but also scary. Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that whole thing next week.
Yes. Well, there's a little bit of Romulus in there.
But there is a little bit of Romulus in there.
There is a little bit of Romulus in there, which I guess brings us to Romulus.
Yes.
Unless you have anything else about Bolt.
No, that really is all there is about Bolt.
Okay.
But yeah, no, we do want to talk a little more about, we peppered in a little Romulus last week. We almost teased it a little and decided that what a great time to talk about who Romulus is.
Okay, and there's just a lot, and like I'm not gonna do what James did. We're not doing it top to bottom because we didn't.
He's got a big
there's
thing.
There's too much, but
he's also kind of a retcon machine.
That is literally his job. That is literally his job.
His superpower is retconning.
If you are curious, if you want like a bunch of Romulus together, you read Wolverine Origins with the S.
Yes,
the one that
longer run,
the much longer run that people don't like. I'm it's honest. They need to know.
It's very Wolverine.
It's very Wolverine.
If you like Wolverine, it is up there. It is a Wolverine story.
Fair enough. I like Origin singular personally.
I will be honest, like the run starts strong, and then when you start getting to what you're about to talk about with Romulus, that's when you start being like, I think it's getting off the rails a little.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the other run he's in a lot of is Dark Wolverine. These are all kind of the same time period. We're getting, this is like through the 2000s basically, and a little bit into early 2010s. I think at the end of Dark Wolverine, I could be wrong about that. Might be 2006, but in any case, those are the runs where Romulus lives.
Yeah. And 2006 is when Origins started.
Okay, started, not ended. Perfect. Yeah, so you're mid 2000s.
To 2010 is when that run goes.
Yeah, I was pretty sure, but yeah. Here's the thing. Let's talk about the function of Romulus.
Yes.
I think that's important. Romulus is the character that is supposedly manipulating Wolverine,
which is what we were talking about with T-Max last week. Like, all of my research pre 2006 was saying it was the FBI the CIA working with the Canadian government or with Weapon Plus or whatever.
Yeah, Weapon Plus. Yeah.
It was it was Weapon X with the CIA is what T-Max is about, and then you read the secret files.
The secret files that like we talked about it last week, but it's really interesting. But so the point of Romulus is that he is why Wolverine's like memories and like he sometimes becomes more quote unquote like rabid or bestial, feral, etc. They were trying to, and they've retconned the reason why this is so hard to talk about is that Romulus was retconned in the middle of his run, effectively, like of time where he was important in the Marvel comics, because originally he was set up as being he claimed to be from like centuries old is the first thing. Like he's got a twin sister Remus.
I was gonna say like the Romulus and Remus story is supposed to be based on him is what he originally said.
Yes, that is what he's selling. It's like part of the lupine lineage. and while they retcon this later, it's just like, oh, he just made this up, right?
Yeah.
That's not true, because in the comic books there is a literal scene with Black Panther, okay, that is talking about how like oh, he's like a primal being that came from like canines instead of primates.
Sure.
That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say. It's a ridiculous thing to have one of your like superheroes say about a character if that's not going to be true. Like, why would he say that? Where would he get that from?
I didn't read as much Romulus for this week, but I did like scan certain like fan page articles and stuff. And I read some of that and was like, that sounds insane. I don't have time to even track that down.
Did you read about the graveyard? What the retcon is?
No.
Okay, so basically, there's this whole thing with that, and so like Wolverine's not really a man. He's a wolf. Like he's not a monkey. He's a wolf, which is not a Wolverine.
Which
by
is
the
not
way.
a Wolverine. No, it's not.
I'm not even covering that. Not touching that right now. We're just gonna assume
nobody knows what a Wolverine is what it seems like.
100%. And the fact they did the lupine thing, just Romulus,
He's
really
always
doubled
hanging
down.
out with wolves. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Wolverine likes to hang out with wolves.
Yes. He is basically, he likes to paint himself as an emperor. He's like very ruthless. There's a point at which like Nick Fury is reporting to Wolverine that like Romulus has been manipulating his family for centuries. The other thing, so you've got Black Panther, you've got Nick Fury. Like, I mean, they were clearly setting this up to be real.
We're talking old school Nick Fury.
Yeah, Nick Fury, and the fact that I have to read the bubbles because now I only read Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. And I'm like, who is this person? Oh, right, that's Nick Fury.
There is a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie that was made in the 90s, I want to say it was, with Hasselhoff.
Oh my God, so I can't think of a worse thing. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, it's amazing.
Uh-huh.
I love it. So we got Hasselhoff, Nick Fury, and we got Samuel L. Jackson from Nick Fury.
Okay,
this is Hasselhoff. We got the Hoff.
This is the Hoff for sure. So you've got like this whole thing setting up basically to blame. It's basically a way to have Wolverine's like patchiness and his like feralness and all that stuff kind of be explained. That was like the point of it.
They also in this conversation, see, this is the conversation I did read. They did say that him being with Xavier in the Institute helped block him from Romulus's influence.
Yeah, I didn't mention that because there's so many dumb things that don't make any sense.
But I'm saying like, they're trying to interweave Romulus and being like, well, you might be asking why. Well, this is why. Like they go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, they also talk about. Did you read about how Bucky Barnes is also potentially an agent of Romulus?
No, I did not.
Yes, that is a thing.
Okay.
It is a real thing that they were. Again, here's the question. Yes. Did it really happen, though?
I don't know.
Because, okay, so they're talking about it in certain issues.
This is why I was afraid
it really happened.
This is why I was afraid of hitting Romulus because of this.
You're 100% right. This is what it is. So you have all of this content about how he's been manipulating people from the shadows. He was influencing Bucky Barnes when they were in the war. There's a whole issue of Wolverine Origins where it's Wolverine and Captain America and Bucky Barnes, and it's like just like a weird issue of basically Wolverine like being sassy about Captain's like weird 50s style of inspiring men. Nobody hates Captain America like X-Men writers do. I swear.
Sure.
The whole issue is literally Wolverine being like, he's just, all these men like need to be led by him, but he's only threatening with words and not showing them. And so he's not inspiring confidence. And then when Bucky does it for him by kicking some guy or whatever, he pulls Bucky aside and says, Bucky, watch the language. Like it's like full on like corny Captain America, which doesn't make any sense for the year that this was written.
Right.
Like, but that's what they're selling here.
Oh man, it feels like it should be like Wolverine's always in the trenches. He's not the general. He is up front getting himself dirty.
Yes.
And not that Captain America doesn't fight, but Captain America's going after other generals. And he might go through the battlefield to get there. That's what you needed.
I will say that Wolverine does respect Captain America.
Sure.
He's like all the men weren't inspired by him, but like he'll show us all because it's Captain America. But like during this whole issue, there's one singular line about Romulus, which is about how like Bucky is an agent of. I've heard Bucky was an agent of Romulus too. That whatever. So like they were trying.
Is that even true?
So the retcon is, as we are running out of time very quickly, the retcon is that Remus, so Romulus' sister, tells Wolverine that the whole thing is a front. Basically that they're not ancient. They're not descended from wolves. They're not lupine, whatever.
Sure.
They're people, and that they like were manipulating. They were like setting it up to confuse Wolverine and to like make it easier to manipulate him. So the manipulation is still the same, which I guess is fine. Like,
sure.
But like there was a point where there was like an old literal Disney style elephant graveyard where lupine bones were, and that he had dug them up to show Wolverine. And so Remus was like, he planted that. That was set up.
Wow.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, wow. Again, this is not a very long time. Do you hear the dates here?
Yeah.
There was clearly a decision they were halfway through this thing, and they were going to include Bucky Barnes. Like, they were starting to be like, Romulus is going to be this big thing in the Marvel universe. And then somebody was like, what are you talking about?
It feels like the MCU trying to use Kang. They're like, we're gonna weave him in so hard, and if it doesn't work, you're like, oh no, we're in a pickle.
We're in a pickle.
We need to abort and retcon, which in the comics you kind of have to retcon. In the movies, you can kind of be like, well, I guess we'll never hear from him again. Goodbye forever. Ant-Man Guild. The end of Ant-Man is different now. But you know what I mean. So like it is very interesting because I cannot really, that's a lie. I have too much X-Men knowledge. There's one other time where I've seen something change so quickly and so obviously in the issues, and it was Onslaught. Like who Onslaught was, what that was about. Yeah. This is very similar in a way. They landed this, I think, better, I guess, but the problem isn't so much how they like managed to land the ship, where it's like, no, the whole thing was a setup and he was lying. He's just a real jerk. But like the decisions that they made leading up to before that retcon is revealed, and like I think the issue is like Wolverine like 300 and something. 310 is when Remus shows up.
Okay, so I think it's like 321-ish when Remus is like, actually, the whole thing was a lie.
Man, they could have just made it a lot easier and just said it was Mysterio. It'd make more sense.
So, but before we end here, the goal of Romulus was to get adamantium, was to harvest adamantium. That was his goal.
The first time he showed, in the Romulus storyline in Origins, he is revealed, he fights Wolverine. It has been revealed that he has been manipulating Wolverine through this entire storyline, this entire run, this comic run, to take out other like killers and super soldiers.
Yes.
And the only ones left are Wolverine and his son,
Daken.
And the idea is that those two have to fight to the death, but Wolverine doesn't want to kill his son, but he knows his son will want to kill him.
Right.
And then I stopped reading because then it went off into something else, and I ran out of time.
Did you hear about how Romulus tore Daken out of his mother's body, and that's how he lived and everything? Yeah. So like, again, a thing that I'm like, is that true?
I don't know.
Because like when you say the retcon, of like the whole thing was a lie. Where does the lie start? I actually do not know.
Right. Yeah. So in that story, it's him becoming like the next Romulus. Is what he's like. Right. Who's gonna be me now? Right. Yeah, who they're looking. He's looking for a successor. Yeah. For adamantium.
Right. So what the actual goal was to just all this is to distract Wolverine so he can harvest adamantium, which
this feels like when you're watching a movie and it feels very entertaining until you sit and go, that was the villain's plan all along. But if you follow them, that doesn't make sense. A doesn't get you to B to C to D. It feels like that didn't work. Let me try something else.
It's I don't have an answer.
No, because you don't need to.
I almost wish it was. I almost wish that whole thing was a fraud. I mean, like,
that they just didn't retcon
I just wonder if it would have been better. Because, like, what if you just left it where he was manipulating the whole time, but, like, he just loses, and then you just drop him forever, quietly, silently, like you do so many other characters that happen in X-Men comics. Sometimes things don't land. Yeah. I think they somehow made it even worse by realizing that they weren't landing it and then trying to do it,
They made him too big. Like in Origins, he was fighting smaller people.
Yeah.
And then working his way up to this mysterious big boss.
Yeah, it was.
And then the big boss was fine. Because he also looks a bit like an older Wolverine too.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help.
It also takes a lot of agency away from Wolverine, right? It's like he becomes feral because of Romulus, or he does this because of Romulus, not because he is a complex person that doesn't always make the best decisions.
And has a broken mind.
Right. Or somebody who's like really struggling with like identity in the fact that he's like lost his memories, which is by itself a trauma response that we got from Origin. I think that's so much more compelling.
And he's been manipulated multiple times by multiple people and not just Romulus.
Right. But it is all just Romulus if you read Romulus. But
like Team X was supplanting memories in other people and erasing minds, and so like, but then is he behind Team X too?
He was.
So it's like, okay,
he was.
But like, if you're reading the Team X stuff, like
that is not there.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There is a whole. I do want to tease a future episode we'll probably have, because there's like a whole section in this info dump from Hasselhoff, Nick Fury, about the Hudson family line, and Wolverine is part of that Hudson family line.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even realize was something I needed to dig into.
I didn't.
Until I read that and was like, oh boy, I better make a note of that. Because if you haven't noticed, we're not as well versed on the multitude of Wolverine stories that are going on.
I am out of my depth. I actually spent a lot of time trying not to think about the Hudsons.
Well, I didn't want to think about them. I was just putting a pin in it.
No, we are going to. And I knew about them, and I just kind of wasn't thinking about it. But yeah, we're going to have to talk about them.
I'm basically taking this as a way to like really dig into things that I didn't think I was going to originally.
Yeah.
If I was just casually reading, I wouldn't look into the Hudsons. Are you kidding me? They would just kind of happen.
I would say, if you've listened to this podcast for this long already, and you're like, you guys are just telling me about stuff that doesn't sound that interesting that I shouldn't read, maybe that's the takeaway. Maybe that's not for you. But if it does sound like it's interesting to you, if you want to hear about Daken, you have to read this. You have to read the Romulus stuff. Right. If you want to know about Wolverine's son, you have to start here, in my opinion.
No, you're right. It's the big chunk of it.
This is where Daken comes from. This is what his motivations are leading up. And I would argue Daken turns into a really great character in modern X-Men.
You also can just skip to the modern stuff.
You could. And so that is my advice to you. But if you love Daken, you're like, where did he come from? How did it start?
You're going to have to jump back here.
This is where it goes. So that's your little tidbit for the day. I've done my due diligence. Oh, that's it.
We both have.
Yeah.
So our time is up.
It is. All right. It's been Stasia.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next 10.